What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 235 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're chatting UFC Perth. Dominic Reyes traveling down under to fight CKB's own Carlos Ulberg. Good scrap. Interesting card. It's a bit of a tricky one, I think. Before we get started, guys, if you like the show, please drop a like, subscribe. Real quick, I strongly apologize to everybody last week. I listened back to the audio after, and I'm not sure why it was so choppy. I got a new mic this week. Hopefully it goes well. If it's getting choppy in the chat, just let me know, please. Lags and I have discussed potentially, if we can't solve the audio issue, just doing the show, pre-recording it and putting it up. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if it does, that's what we'll do, because obviously we want it to be a good experience. But yeah, I mean, we've had a week off, and we can hop right into it here. UFC Perth. I feel like the UFC doesn't go to Perth unless it's a pay-per-view typically. Am I wrong about that?
No, 100%. I was just gonna say they pretty much only go when it's either Adesanya or like Volk, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, yeah, we got a fight night there. And it's an interesting card, so we'll jump right in. I'll throw it to you first here, Legs. Weird fight to open up the card. Two debutantes. We got Brando Percic. He's taking on Alicia Ellison. Current price, Percic is minus 220. The comeback on Ellison is plus 185. What do you think, your Legs?
It is a bit of a slop fest this first fight of the night. Like both of these guys, very unproven. I mean, you look at their strength schedules. I mean, both of these guys are pretty much fighting like janitors. I mean, we could probably be in like better competition, honestly, than some of these guys that they're fighting, honestly. But I still think there's value on the Perisic side. Like to me, he's the bigger hitter. I think he's much more durable, and I think he's just got more dog in him personally.
Yeah,
I think
I get
for the UFC, I feel like Ellison, but like I don't think either of these guys are going to last long in the UFC.
Yeah, I don't have a super strong opinion. I tend to agree that Pericic is the much better fighter in terms of technical ability and acumen. Obviously, he's more skilled, and he's a much more skilled striker. Having said that, I mean, it's worth considering the fact that Pericic only has 5 fights. Ellison obviously only has 6. But it is kind of one of those fights where, like, I agree with what Six Hound's saying in the chat. Pericic does pass the eye test. But we see fights like this all the time where it's like, I don't want to say it's coin flippy because I don't think it's coin flippy. I think it favors Pericic clearly. But when you're dealing with two guys who kind of want to bite the mouthpiece and, let their hands fly, it can play out a little coin flippy, or variance can be a lot higher in that kind of fight. With all of that is to say, I think Pericic is much more skilled and should probably win pretty easily. But for me, I might have been able to tempt myself at like the minus 160 range, like where he was last week. But here it's like, if I trust a guy with 5 fights in a dick swinging match and I lose at like minus 220, I'm gonna want to kill myself, So those are my thoughts. But I get it. I do agree. Pericic is a lot better. Moving on, we have one of my nemesis from PFL, Michelle Montag, making her UFC debut, taking on Luana Carolina. Current price, Montag minus 210. The comeback on Carolina plus 180. I bet 40-year-old Olivia Parker at like plus 800 against Montag way back in the day. I bet Abby Montes against Michelle Montag and was quite disappointed when she got subbed whilst being minus 300 live in that fight. Montes, that is. I'm not a huge fan of Montag. Obviously, her bread and butter is grappling. I don't think her striking is anything to write home about. I don't think her wrestling is much to write home about. However, she is a very physical broad, and if she can get to top position, she is quite good there. She's very good on top. She's got very, very good jiu-jitsu for the women's division. She's taking on Luana Carolina. Like, I bet Carolina against the grappler, against Ariane Petrovic, but like, I was like certain Petrovic was terrible. That's why I bet Juliana Miller against her in her last fight too. Mm-hmm. I don't like Montag's game. Like, there's a part of me that wants to say she's a fraud, except women's 135 is such an unskilled division that you don't really have to be like having a really good top game and really good jiu-jitsu is going to be enough in a lot of fights. And I mean, that's the whole part of this fight, right? Because like Carolina is way more experienced. She's beaten way better competition. She is tall, so she's kind of hard to take down. But I will say this, even though I think Carolina has gotten quite a bit better, she's still terrible on bottom. You put her on bottom, she's horrible there. And like Montag is very good on top. And I keep thinking, I'm like, yeah, I could imagine a fight where Carolina keeps this upright, kind of works her in the clinch. Maybe she gets the top position herself, like off like a clinch throw or something like that. But the problem for me is, first of all, Carolina is a flyweight by nature, and she's coming up to 135 here. Montag's fought at women's featherweight. She's coming down to 135 here. Big strength edge for Montag. She's younger. And it's the kind of fight where, yeah, Carolina could look giant value in retrospect, but I mean, one takedown might be the fight. Two takedowns is probably a lost decision, you know? And when it's that kind of dynamic, it's like, do I really want to, am I really that excited about Luana Carolina plus 180? Not really. So it's probably a pass for me. What do you think, Danny?
I mean, you mentioned huge talking point. It's really just the strength and just the weight disparity here. Really, Montes, or say her name, Montague is coming from 145 down to 135, and Carolina is obviously going up to 135. And really, I mean, to me, she just really seemed Carolina. That is just super wooden, very non-physical, and to your point, if she's grounded, she's not great in the scrambles. Like her takedown defense is decent, but like the actual scramble ability, it's just not there.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we have one that is like shaping up to be the people's main event of the week. We got Jamie Malarkey. He's taking on Rolando Bedoya. Current price, it's pick'em. Minus 110, minus 110. What do you think here, Lags? You like the Bedoya side, you like the Malarkey side, or is it a pass?
So I lean the Bedoya side, but I'm ultimately going to pass. Like I can see why people like the Bedoya side because I feel like much higher volume upside. Guy's much more durable as well. Like Jamie Malarkey's getting hurt pretty much every single fight. But like at the same time, like the volume Bedoya's putting out there, he's there to get hit himself so much to the point where I feel like it is almost like a coin flippy pick 'em type of fight. Like I don't think there's huge edges either side. I'm fine passing.
Yeah, my pre-tape thought was Bedoya is a smash spot. Malarkey is totally washed. Hit the fade his shin. My initial post-tape thought was like, all right, I still like Bedoya. I'm probably going to bet him and pick him. And I've kind of now, after thinking about it some more, kind of gotten to the point where I'm probably at a pass here. And I'll tell you why. Look, at the end of the day, I do think Malarkey's chin is done. I don't think it was ever that good, to be honest. It just so happens that in recent years, he's kind of come up against more dynamic hitters who have punished him for it. Whereas in the past, he didn't fight a lot of hitters before Jalen Turner. And the only one he did, Devontae Smith, hurt him bad in that fight too.
Yep.
So I'm less convinced that it's like, oh, this has been an attritional damage to his chin to the point of being dust. I just don't think it's that good, and his defense isn't that good. And yeah, he's 31. He hasn't fought in a minute. But like Rolando Bedoya, I don't think he's got much power, man. Like he landed flush a lot on Jai Herbert, who does not have a good chin himself. And Herbert seemed to wear the shots with like really little issue. And actually, when you're looking at the tape for Bedoya, I don't think he's chinny, but man, Bedoya he's gotten rocked a bunch as well, you know, both at 55 and at, 70. Now 70, a little bit more forgivable. Herbert knocking him down and kind of wobbling him a couple times in that fight, a little less forgivable. So I do think Bedoya has a firm durability edge here, but I don't think it's what I thought it was going into tape. Obviously, the guy who's more experienced and has way better wins is Malarkey. I mean, to your point, I think the volume of Bedoya gives him some real advantages here because he's reliable to throw a shitload of strikes in this fight. But what I'll say is, I mean, we're not that far removed, and you could argue he should have lost the fight. I thought he did. I bet Michael Johnson, but from Jamie Malarkey outlanding Michael Johnson 90-65 in significant strikes and winning a decision against him, I think Michael Johnson, even at 39 now, like old man Michael, would beat the brakes off Bedoya personally. And yeah. So like I look at it, I'm like, man, Malarkey's the better wrestler here for sure. He's the more experienced guy. He's probably the better technical striker in this fight too. The biggest question is just his chin against Bedoya's chin. I think you can make a case that Malarkey's the side. I don't really personally want to do it because if I am wrong and Malarkey's chin is just cracked, like that's not something I really want to be betting on at Pick'em.
Right.
But if it blew out to Bedoya, I might do it. I might.
Yeah, that's fair.
Moving on. Good fight here. Josias Mousasa coming back off of losing, as I believe he was like a minus 1,200 favorite. It was something like that in his debut.
Yep.
Yeah, against Carlos Vera. He's taking on Colby Thickness, who's coming off a loss in his debut to Alexandra Taporia. Current price, Mousasa, road game for him, but he's minus 150. The comeback for Thickness, plus 130. What do you think here, Legs?
Like, I think you could make arguments for Thickness, like grappling Mousasa here. Like, the guy seems to have decent entries. His wrestling's okay, but I just struggle to see, like, the level of his wrestling really is where I guess I'm at, really. Like, I don't think it's all that great. His striking is a kind of like pitter-patter volume. It's nothing of substance, really. Like, he really just needs to time great takedowns, probably control Mousasa for the majority of the fight, maybe find a finish. I think more often than not, I mean, Mousasa has more finishing upside, more higher durability on the feet. Yeah, I think minus 150 is fine for Mousasa. I'm fine passing with it, but I think the line's fine.
Yeah, there's a part of me that like kind of wants to bet Mousasa just because I think there's a chasm in athleticism here, if we're being honest. Mousasa, he's the much better athlete. He's faster, way more power. I think he's got better cardio, to be honest. Like, I was actually really, really impressed with Moussasa's cardio on Dana White's Contender Series. And I think Moussasa's got the tools to defend takedowns and get up, pretty easily. To 6 Hounds point in the chat, his grappling did look impressive in his Contender Series fight, and Tanzilov's a better grappler than Thickness is. So from that perspective, I feel like all the physical attributes, I think most of the improvement upside, I think most of the finishing upsides on the Mousasa side. The thing that concerns me with Mousasa is just he is so green, man. Like, I think he is a UFC level athleticism, but does not have a UFC level skill set at this point in time, in my opinion. Like, I watch some of these fights. The amount of, it's not just Vera who dropped him with a head kick, the amount of head kicks I've seen this dude eat, just because he's not a particularly fundamentally sound striker at this point in his career. Actually, I'd argue the only thing he's fairly fundamentally sound at is defensive grappling, ironically enough. And it concerns me because he hasn't gone to, he insists he's staying in the Congo and he's going to become a champion from the Congo. Good luck. I don't know how many, championship level fighters you're training with out there. Not many, 0. Unless he's getting rounds in with like Francis Ngannou. I doubt it. Right. But, so it's like, I would normally be like banging the drum on a guy with Josias Moussasa's athleticism getting a lot better fight to fight. But the fact that this guy is just not moving to like a real gym, how much better can you really get, like fighting shepherds, or they're training against shepherds out in the Congo? I don't think like that much better personally. So I do lean that side. I think he does have more improvement upside anyway. I think he's a much better athlete. I think he's a much more dangerous fighter. But Thickness is not a bad fighter, man. He's a decent grappler. He's a decent striker. He just lacks athleticism. It's like turbo athlete who is very few skills against very unathletic guy who's actually reasonably well-rounded. So I don't know. I kind of think it's going to be a close fight. And he does come from a good camp. And he seems like he takes his career very seriously, which it seems like Mousasa does, but again, it doesn't matter, like if you're not getting like, the rounds he needs. So yeah, it's probably gonna be a pass for me again. What was that?
I said it's a tricky one, just like the next one.
Yeah, the next one's very tricky, and it's another one similar to Bedoya and Malarkey, where I've kind of. Oh no, sorry, not the next one. The next one I have a lot of confidence in. We got Andre Petroski. He's taking on Cam Roston. The current price, Petroski minus 151. The comeback on Roston, plus 131. I'm going to bet Petroski here eventually. I feel he's got a big grappling edge in this fight. I don't. Yeah, he's had his gas tank issues before, and I know, Roston got up against Torres Finney. Petroski's much better than Torres Finney at literally everything. He's a better wrestler. He's got better jiu-jitsu. He's got better top control. He's a better submission grappler. He's honestly a better striker, frankly. Yeah, he could get clipped on the feet. Roston's tall. He's long. He throws some like nasty knees. He could clip Petroski, but I don't think he hits all that hard despite coming off a KO in his last fight. And yeah, he might have a cardio edge here, but we've seen, Petroski plenty of times in his career thus far has been dead tired, but if he can secure takedowns, they'll just keep going to it. And I look at this fight, and that's kind of how I feel about it. I think Petroski's going to get takedowns and control pretty easily here. I don't think Roston's active enough on the feet to really outwork or offset the work that Petroski is probably going to be doing here. I shouldn't say that. He could do that. But I guess my point is I see less upside than a lot of guys against Petro when it comes to being able to offset his grappling. 6-ounce saying Petro sub or decision. I think decision. I actually like the over and the goes the distance in this fight, to be honest. But yeah, it reminds me of the Fremd fight a bit. Roston's coming off a high-profile win on Dana White's Contender Series, but he's already shown he's a poor defensive wrestler. He's the worst jiu-jitsu player of the two. He's the worst wrestler of the two. He's the far less experienced fighter of the two. I feel like Petroski should be in like the minus 200 range here personally. So I'll eventually find myself there. What do you think, Danny?
I guess I'll keep myself a little brief on it. I think you touched a lot of the main points, but to me, it's just like Petroski's the much better grappler than Finney, and Finney was able to hold him down get him down pretty easily.
Like 10 minutes.
And not necessarily, right. And to me, Petroski's a much better submission grappler, and the jiu-jitsu like levels at another level, really, in comparison to Finney. So to me, he should be able to have success landing takedowns, holding Roston down. Yeah.
And I do think the Petroski cardio thing is a little bit overblown. We've seen him get tired before, but he's won like most of the round threes he's been in the UFC. You know, it's not like he's, you know, against Edmund he didn't, but Edmund's like a different caliber of fighter than Cam Roston is by a large margin. As much as we like to shit on Edmund, you know, he's considerably better than Cam Roston.
You would just like to think that third round would have been a little bit more competitive though from Petroski.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he got discouraged pretty hard, to be honest. And that's kind of my thing, though. Like, I think you can discourage Petroski. I don't see what Roston's going to do to discourage him, though. You know, Roston's not as good a wrestler as Edmund is.
No, and not as lethal on feet either.
No. Moving on, we have a really good one here. I'll let you lead it off. I know you have a side here you like. We got Oban Elliot. He's taking on Jonathan Maleiff. Current price, Elliot minus 118. The comeback on Maleiff minus 102. What do you think here?
And I get it. Maybe it is an overreaction. I like Giuseppe in his last spot against Maleiff, but like I like Maleiff here for a small bet at plus 105. To me, I think he's a much better striker than Elliot. I think he's going to be able to keep range here, land those kicks to whatever range he really wants to, whether that's low, middle, high kicks even as well. I just don't. To me, I feel like in this fight, I just struggle to see Elliot having success in the grappling, and that's the crux of the fight to me. Because I feel like on the feet, Maleiff's just a much better striker.
Yeah, I don't have a bet here. I probably won't. I thought I was going to be on Elliot big before I taped the fight.
Okay.
Even after, it was kind of similar to like the internal dialogue I had about Malarkey and Bedoya, where, I mean, Elliot is the kind of spot I like, right? I bet just set big against Maleiff and lost that. My priors on Maleiff haven't changed a whole lot since last fight, to be honest. I still more or less think the same things I did. He's a decent defensive grappler and a good athlete, but he's kind of a bot on the feet. And if you can just kind of avoid the kicks, you know, he's easy to pick apart. And I still feel that way. And I do think, you know, Elliot's boxing and his movement and his ability to counter should, you know, open up some opportunities for him to have big offensive success here. The issue I have, there's a couple issues. I think Elliot's got a much deeper game than Maleiff does. The problem is none of the deep parts of Elliot's game are particularly strong. You know, they're like,
he's just pretty well rounded. Yeah, he's a good, you know, lunch pail fighter.
A generalist. Yeah, he's an average. I mean, we talked about this right before his last fight, and neither of us bet Co. But we both said on this podcast, like, Oban Elliot, the market likes him way too much. The guy is like very average. You know, like there's nothing special about him.
And funny enough, though, teammate and, you know, guy we like to bet against was highly valued in the market as well, Jack Shore.
Yeah.
He was always huge.
And so I look at Elliot and I'm like, he checks a lot of boxes, right? From what I want to bet. I do think he could potentially land a couple takedowns, but I can't really see him controlling Maleiff all that much.
No.
I do think he can outstrike him and win a comfortable decision that way if he can avoid the body kicks. The biggest issue for me is Elliot, even against Preston Parsons, who's now out of the UFC, Elliot's margins were slimish. They were slim. Basil Hafez, terrible striker. Elliot's margins, super slim until he knocked him out. He could argue he was losing that fight, honestly, which is embarrassing considering the striking gap between them. Obviously, Co dominated him. I honestly, going through tape for Elliot, what? Val Woodburn dropped him. Yeah. I going through tape on it, I was like, man, Oban Elliot is just a lot worse than I thought he was. You know, he's just not. No, He's like below average, slightly below average at everything compared to UFC fighters. Obviously, he's much better than regional fighters, but I think that could be enough here. The problem is I can't see the margins getting wide. I think most of the big moment upside here comes from the Maleiff side. I think most of the finishing upside in this fight comes from the Maleiff side. And I think most of the big improvement upside comes from the Maleiff side here. So with that dynamic, it's like you can't really do business with Elliot at a minus number, you know? He said, Tristan saying, is Giuseppe a comparable level striker to Elliot? I think Giuseppe's probably a better striker than Elliot, honestly. Like it's, or trying to think of how to phrase this. He's more diverse and he hits harder, in my opinion, you know?
I feel like people give a lot of shit to Giuseppe because of the Maleiff fight and the Brian Battle
fight. He fought like a fucking bot. He is, but he fought terribly. He fought terribly against Maleiff. He just refused to go forward, which is what he needed to do all fight, you know. But see, that's the thing, because like Elliott's not going to go forward either, you know. Like that's not his game.
Nope.
So I think Elliott's a better defensive fighter than Giuseppe is, but that's probably where the biggest edge he has in comparing the two of them. So yeah, I actually lean the Maleiff side. It's just more of a kind of on principle. I've been trying to fade this guy since he got to the UFC, and it's like to turn around and lay now essentially. I guess there's still some plus 100s out there, but to turn around and like bet him, pick him against the UFC vet would feel really bad if he lost. So I'm probably going to pass. I actually do sort of lean the Maleiff side in this fight, though, to be honest, but not like. I mean, what did you handicap in Wags?
See, to me, it's like I would say minus 150. I think
I'm tighter than that. I would say he's like minus 120,
and that's fair. I'm fine with even saying that. Like, I think we can maybe compromise there somewhere in the middle, minus 135 ish, something.
Yeah,
something like that. I think he's like a decent size favorite if Elliot can't get the grappling going.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, good fight here, or could be a good fight, could be terrible. Alexia Feyenora, she's taking on Loma Luponme. Current price, Feyenora minus 235. The comeback on Luponme plus 200. Danny, are you frozen? It looks like you are.
No.
Danny is frozen.
Good
yeah, I am. I don't want to get too excited about Alexia Feyenora subbing Molly McCann in a minute. Doesn't tell me a whole lot. What I will say is, to me, she looks like a physical, like an athletic freak. Hits hard. I think she's a pretty good wrestler. I think she's immensely strong, and I think she's got pretty good jiu-jitsu when she's on top. On the feet, nothing special, but she's got a lot of power, which goes a long way in women's MMA. Loma's a big-time vet, been around for a minute. Great clinch game, decent outside kicking game, decent trip takedowns, decent on top. However, I think Loma is pretty mid, personally. In the aggregate, you know, she's got a good record, but let's be honest, she's been matched pretty softly by the UFC. They've really never. The only time they gave her that step up was Lupe Godinez, and Godinez kind of just did whatever she wanted in the wrestling in that fight. I mean, even in her last fight, I bet Estela Nunes at like plus 800, and that was fucking pain, since Nunes should have won that fight, in my opinion. But yeah, my point is, I mean, Loma, we talk about no margins fighter. If she can't win the grappling, she has no margins. Feyenora, she's inexperienced, you know, again, not the kind of spot you normally want to lay a minus 230 on, but huge athleticism edge here, huge edge and finishing ability here. I think a pretty large grappling edge. I think even on the feet, Loma's probably better, but Feyenora hits much more impactfully. And I think I could imagine Feyenora looking like minus 2,000 in this fight, whereas I can't really picture Loma looking like, you know, a favorite. It would be really tough for me to picture that. So, yeah, I think there's probably some value on Feyenora at the current price. I don't know if I'll get there again. It's like, I don't want to break like these rules that I kind of have in place for me, where it's like, because, you know, you see these inexperienced fighters, you know, turn up, lay eggs, or just you find a flaw that you didn't know was there before. There's a lot of risk that comes with it. But I do think Feyenora should win this fight relatively easily. What do you think?
Yeah, I think she's one of the safer parlay spots on the card, honestly. She has a huge grappling upside. She has huge finishing upside as well. And even on the feet, like, it's not like Loma's throwing a ton of combination, a ton of volume out there. Like, Feyenora definitely can compete on the feet. Yeah, I think it's a good spot for her.
Yeah, I agree. Coming up, banger.
Real quick, am I frozen at all? Am I good now?
You're good. You froze before, but you're fine.
All right.
It was very funny. You literally froze right until you had to talk, and then you were fine. So we're good, though.
All right.
We got Navajo Sterling taking on Rodolfo Bolato. Current price, Sterling minus 220. The comeback on Bolato, plus 185. What do you think here, Legs?
You know what, John? I do have a greasy parlay this week, and this is the second leg of the greasy parlay. Perisic is the first leg, and this is another greasy leg with Sterling. But to me, John, you can't spell Bolato without bot. And that, to me, that's what this guy is. The guy comes forward. The guy's got power, but it's reckless. The guy's looking to brawl. He doesn't. I don't know. To me, the guy doesn't have a UFC skill set.
I really want to bet Bolato.
No, don't do it, John.
I really want to bet Bolato.
Sterling's got a big reach advantage, big power edge. I think he finds the clip. I think he finds the chin. If not, I think he beats him to a comfortable decision.
I agree with you, and it probably will be why I ultimately end up passing. I think Sterling, I mean, look, he's young, and he only has like 6 fights, so I don't want to go too over the skis here and be like total fraud. What I will say is, though, Sterling's had 2 UFC fights against, we'll talk about one of them in a minute, but against the ultimate like bottom of the barrel in like Tuco Tokos and even Urslon, and he looked, neither of those fights were sweat free, in my opinion. I think it kind of speaks to the level he's at right now. He's a good athlete. He's got good physical tools, physical intangibles. I do think his power is a little overrated. He's tough, which I like. The Urslon fight, he had to walk through some serious adversity in that fight, and I was actually kind of impressed how he came through it. But I do think, kind of similar to some of the other guys we've talked about, he's a guy who styles himself a kickboxer, but is his kickboxing that good? It's okay. It's okay. There's nothing. Yeah, he's very early in his career. But my point is, like, I don't think, if he's not icing guys, I don't think he's going to be, running away on minutes, at least at this juncture in his career. And Bolato's obviously fought like a decent level of competition for someone this early in his career. He's the better grappler here. He is, a pretty good pressure boxer. The issue is, like you just said, first of all, he's a bot. He's very easy to outmaneuver if you have good footwork, which Sterling does. His chin is very easy to find. It's just straight up in the air, very easy to touch. And unfortunately, not only is his chin easy to find, he does seem to be chinny. I'm not one of these people who thinks that the guy pulled some giant stunt against Paul Craig. Like, the guy was going to be up around. Like, why would he fake that? But I think he got knocked out, and he got almost knocked out by Jimmy Kroot. He got knocked out by Petrino. He got hurt bad by Pateria. His chin's just terrible. So to me, you have to get to a Bolato bet here, you have to be really, really confident that he's getting takedowns. And if you're not confident in that, I don't see how you get there. And I frankly am not confident. Eddie Bryan saying he pulled a stunt. I don't know, man. He was literally about to be up 1-0 to the Bear Jew. Like, did he really quit because of that? I don't think so. I really don't believe that, honestly. But like, yeah, I think a lot of boxes are checked for Bolato. I wouldn't be shocked if he springs the upset, but I don't think he's going to have an easy time taking Sterling down. And I think Sterling he's probably offensively a similar level to Pateria, but he hits a whole hell of a lot harder than Pateria does. And yeah, I don't know. They're flying Bolato out here for a reason. I'm not going to get in front of it.
And not to like just try to MMA math this, but like Bolato's having a sweaty ass fight with Jimmy Kroot.
We're going to talk about Jimmy Kroot.
We are going to talk about Jimmy Kroot.
But I mean, I think you got to. We'll talk about Kroot in 2 fights, but I think you got to be like a little fair. And it's like Jimmy Kroot has he's only really lost like top 5 guys,
I guess what I'm trying to say is Bolato's UFC career, he hasn't exactly painted himself in glory in any of these fights.
No, he hasn't. He's had sweaty moments in every single one of them. Every single one. Yeah, which is why I'm not betting him. So anyway, I see the scope for an upset here, but I'm not going to be on it if it happens. Moving on, we have got Louis Sutherland making his debut. He is taking on Justin Tafa. Current price, Tafa minus 115. The comeback on Sutherland minus 105. I might get to a Tafa bet here. I mean, I know Louis Sutherland's landed a couple takedowns regionally. Bro, Louis Sutherland is not Carl Williams. Carl Williams would fucking dog walk Louis Sutherland, Tafa's a terrible wrestler, but I don't see much in Sutherland's game that suggests if Tafa just gives his back up and stands up, he won't be able to, if they're grappling and Sutherland does take him down once or twice. Sutherland's a bit bigger on the feet, but he's slow. his technique looks pretty terrible to me. It's mostly blitz reliant, just blitzing into your face, like with a big combination. He is a lot bigger than Tafa, but I mean, dude, Justin Tafa sucks, but his hand speed is so fast. He carries serious power. And I keep trying to picture the fight, and I'm like, if you're telling me these guys that Sutherland can't control him and he's gonna have to like swing with trade with Tafa for 15, I don't see how he's not getting hurt a couple times in this fight. He doesn't have great head movement. Tafa actually has pretty good head movement. Tafa's a pretty good boxer, honestly. He really is. He just doesn't do a single other part of MMA well. But yeah, I mean, Tafa's more experienced, better comp. I think he's a much better boxer. I think he's got much more power. I feel like he should be in the minus 140, minus 150 range here, against the debutant. I nothing about Sutherland's tape other than his traps really impressed me. That's it, though. Literally nothing on his tape. So yeah, I mean, no one likes Tafa, but dude, I fucking bet Tafa at plus 120 against Ellison Teixeira, and now I'm getting him at like pick him against Louis Sutherland. Now the Ellison bet was probably pretty bad, but like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? What do you think?
John, I'm tempted, and I'm not going to probably end up doing it, but I like the over 1.5. Minus 140, minus 140, minus 145. The only problem with that is two things. Well, one, Sutherland's never exactly fought as big of a hitter as Tafa. So can he withstand the power that Tafa's bringing back and the hand speed? Maybe not. Conversely, if Tafa's grounded here against that massive man with Sutherland on top of him, he's probably finishing him.
Could be. I'm more skeptical of that. I really do not like Sutherland's grappling, man. His top game looks really horrific to me. It's just that like he's getting on top of all these eternal MMA bums who just kind of assume the position as soon as you get there, I
mean, Justin Tafa's got some good striking, but other than that, John, I mean, is he much more
No,
than
he sucks. He sucks.
He's an internal bum, He's just like a step above that,
I'd say a pretty significant step above that.
Yeah,
that feels like it's a little disrespectful.
All right, I'm being a little harsh on the guy, but
Anyway, we move on. Great fight here. We got Tom Nolan. He's taking on Charlie Campbell. Current price, Nolan minus 150. The comeback on Campbell, plus 130. What do you think, Danny?
It is going to be a banger. It's one I actually taped yesterday. I'm with you on the Nolan side here. I lean the Nolan side. I think
Legs cut out.
Much longer. I think he's the better striker of the two. I think he's probably more durable, honestly, too. To me, it's really just the chin of Nolan. Leaves it out there. Charlie definitely can crack and put him down. But I like Nolan's striking game.
Yeah, I am like sitting here debating a Nolan bet. I'm kind of hoping Campbell takes some more money, but it's funny because I went into the tape thinking I was going to bet Campbell for a fair amount, and I came away extremely unimpressed with what he's got on his footage there. He knocked out Alex Reyes, who hadn't fought in 7 years and was 36 years old, off of almost dying. Then he fights Trevor Peek, and look, Peek's tough, but Peek's, we've talked about him a million times. Peek's not a good MMA fighter, and he was panic shooting for his life at the end of that fight. He had he had a really good first round, and he had to default to wrestling to win the latter half of that fight. I mean, the issue with Campbell is he's got good combinations, he's got pretty good power, but he's a bit of a bot, if we're being honest. He's very easy to hit. He's kind of slow in how he cuts off the cage. He's a decent grappler, but not great. And I look at Nolan, and Nolan's been a guy that I've really wanted to fade for a lot of his UFC tenure, but he's super young. The kid's only 25 years old. He had some sketchy moments earlier in his career. Obviously, he got knocked out by Nicholas Mota, got hurt bad by Victor Martinez. I think he got hurt one other time in the UFC too. But I really think in his last two fights, you've seen it's pretty clear he's putting in the work. 2 fights ago, who did he fight 2 fights ago? He fought Slava last fight. It was, Alex Reyes. No, not Reyes. Yeah, it was Reyes.
No.
It seemed like he actually learned to use his range a bit more in that fight. Like prior to that, he'd come bombing into the pocket and just be right there to counter and hurt every fight. But in the Reyes fight, he actually started like stepping back, picking his shots more, using teeps a lot more, using knees and elbows on the inside instead of just brawling with guys. And then he went into the Slava fight, and like Slava, in my opinion, is a better striker than Charlie Campbell is by a fair margin. And yeah, Nolan wrestled him a bit in that fight, but Nolan beat the fucking brakes off him on the feet in that fight. He did a tremendous job of measuring distance. as our friend Gugabe would say, mixing the martials, blending in the takedowns and the striking. He really never ate a critical shot in that entire fight. And he's still only 25 years old and training hardcore. And it's like, I look at this fight and I'm like, yeah, I think they both can get hurt and knocked out. We've seen both of them hurt in the UFC. We've seen both of them get knocked out before. Campbell's 30 years old though. And Campbell is very used to being the biggest guy in there. He's fighting a much bigger fighter in Nolan than him. I still think Nolan's getting better. I think he's faster. I think he's got better shot selection. I think he should be able to hold up fine in the grappling with Campbell. I sort of think he's the more likely of the two to win by knockout in this fight. Having said that, it could be a car crash. Campbell is going to try to make it a car crash, right? Which is what the scary thing. Because I don't want to be on Nolan at minus money in a car crash, but I do think I think it's a very interesting fight to me, but I actually like the trajectory Tom Nolan's on at 25 years old, and I think he's going to continue to progress, whereas Campbell's not too active. He literally looks like he hasn't improved in like 3 years. So, yeah, I lean the Nolan side. If it got down to minus 125, I think I'd pull the trigger on him, to be honest. What's the price you want on it?
I would probably say about the same. Yeah. Closer to pick him. What's tough with me, honestly, on rewatch with the Slava fight, I know he was up 2 rounds, but that third round when he struggled to get the takedowns late and just kind of accepted bottom position and Slava was fine, just chilling on top, that was not a good look.
And Campbell could do some work in that position too.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. Campbell's definitely a better grappler than Slava.
It could definitely get sweaty back half the fight for sure.
I actually think if Campbell were smart, he'd come out and just try to grapple from the jump in this fight. I really think that's probably because I think he might struggle to get him down, but I think when it comes to actual position of grappling and jiu-jitsu, Campbell's probably still ahead of Nolan at this juncture in their careers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see the cardio dynamic there, though.
Moving on, you know what I'm doing here, lags. There's no choice. The line has been drawn. We got Jake Matthews taking on Neil Magny. The Celtic Kid, currently minus 405. The comeback on Neil Magny, plus 335. I mean, you guys fucking know it's Neil Magny season. What are we doing here? This is I bet Jake Matthews in his last 2 fights. I bet him minus 185 against Francisco fucking Prado, and then bet him as an underdog to Chidi and Joe Kawani last fight. Now he turns around after the memest of meme subs. Don't get me wrong. I was thrilled to cash it. And he's taking on Neil Magny and he's minus 400. I get it. Jake's younger. He's a bit more dynamic, carries a bit more power at this juncture in his career. But all the things that spook Magny off, like calf kicks and aggressive wrestling, that isn't really Jake Matthews' game. High output pressure, not really Jake Matthews' game. I mean, Matthews is going to sit back. I mean, Matthews may try to wrestle him, but if Matthews does that and he doesn't finish him, I think he'll get pretty tired and probably end up getting out grappled himself, Matthews is probably going to sit back and try to pick his counters and land big shots. And he probably will land some, maybe enough to, maybe he knocks Neil out, maybe it's enough to do that. But I cannot really, it's so hard for me to picture a world where Jake Matthews looks 80% in this fight. I do not, I favor him. I think he deserves to be a favorite. He's much younger. He's obviously a well-rounded fighter. He could knock Magny out here. He probably has more finishing upside than Magny does by a fair amount. But I mean, Jake Matthews, we talk about small margins. He's a small margins king. How many bags has this guy fumbled in his career? And now he's fighting a cardio demon who, can hold his own in the grappling, is better in the clinch in all likelihood, can match the output, who's fought literally everybody, while Jake Matthews has been fighting the Francisco Prados of the world, dude. I mean, the price is crazy to me. I made Matthews minus 200, minus 220 here. I think that's fair. I think it builds in a lot of the age-based upside. Because let's be real, Lex. 4 years ago, this is pick'em to probably favorite Magny, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the guys who have been abusing Magny. It's literally the best guys in the division. That is who he's losing to. The Carlos Prates of the world. The Ian Garys of the world. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Tristan saying what I think of Jake versus Michael Morales. I thought Jake fought well there. I mean, I think Jake's a really good fighter. I think he fights well. He fights well with a lot of guys. The problem with Jake is just, again, it's margins. He's got power, but he's not a huge hitter. And he tends to just operate on very, very thin margins in most of his fights. So yeah, I mean, I think that Jake should be I think Jake should be a favorite here. Probably minus 200, maybe even minus 250 if you want to say it. But I think plus 330 to plus 350 on Magny. I don't see how you don't put some scratch on that. What do you think, Legs?
We were chatting about this on the weekend, John, and I'm totally with you. Honestly, totally with you. I'm going to be playing Magny as well, too. And because to me, unless Matthews comes out here and does grapple fuck him from the get-go, I don't see how you get to 80%, really. Like, again, this is, I mean, that's really, that's really the crux of it right there. Because if this goes 15 minutes, Magny's going to compete in the volume. He's going to compete in the clinch. Long guy, probably better cardio, too.
Better jiu-jitsu. Well, jiu-jitsu is probably similar, actually.
I get the higher finishing upside for Jake. Like, maybe we could favor him, to a bigger extent there. Maybe, like, to your point, 250, 275, but, like, 400. Jake Matthews. What could go wrong?
80%.
What could go wrong?
80%. A lot can go wrong. That's. We'll be there. We'll be there. Come hell or high water. But we will be there. Flag planted. Moving on, we got Jim Kroot taking on Ivan Urslon. Current price, Jimmy Kroot minus 175. The comeback on Urslon plus 150. What do you think here, Danny?
Well, I think people might try to get cute here and fade Jimmy Kroot here just because, Jimmy's, doesn't have the greatest cardio. I get that. And on the feet, bit of a liability, very hittable. But like Ivan Urslon, to your point earlier in the show, one of the worst to really do it. Like the guy on the feet, like Jimmy Kroot can have success on the feet. Probably is maybe the better technical striker.
More active.
Ivan hits harder, probably. Maybe it's commensurate. But Jimmy, to me, has a huge grappling edge here in this fight and should be able to finish him on the mat. Now, is he going to? Maybe not. Could it get sweaty down the stretch? 100%. It's a Jimmy Kroot fight. But even if it goes to a decision, I think Jimmy has huge decision upside with the grappling.
Yeah, I like Kroot at the price a fair amount. I'm not sure why Urslon is taking money in this fight, to be honest. I don't think Kroot's a lock, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but and I bet Urslon against Cutelaba, It's not as if like I see why people like Urslon. He's a very muscular guy. He's got decent power, good counterpuncher. He's a more technical boxer than Kroot is. But let's be honest, he's very low volume. I don't think he's particularly durable himself. If anything, I actually think Kroot's the more durable fighter of the two. And the grappling gap here is it's enormous for Kroot. Kroot's been knocked out, but he got knocked out by prime Jamal Hill and hurt bad by like Alonzo Menafield. I look at the Cutelaba fight and I feel like Kroot's going to have way more success grappling than Cutelaba did, and the takedown should come similarly easy. And to your point, even if they strike, I do think Matt's saying in the chat, Ivan's a better boxer. I do think Ivan is a better boxer. I do think that. But he doesn't throw a lot of strikes. That's the problem. He just lets guys get off on him. He's a much better boxer than Cutelaba. But Cutelaba, the volume was pretty competitive because Cutelaba just kind of does Cutelaba things, and he's looking to pick the perfect shot. To me, it's like I still think for whatever reason, I bet Kroot last fight, I think it was like minus 230 against Prochnio. He's still getting priced like he's like an outside the top 15 light heavyweight when like his losses are Menafield, Jamal Hill right before he won the title, hurting his leg against Anthony Smith. Like that's and then like early in his career losing to Misha. I feel like Kroot's a top 5 to 8 guy still. I think he's got a huge grappling edge here. I just don't put Urslon KO that high percentage personally. And I think that's really why I like the Kroot side, because I don't think Urslon's KO is more than like 15 to 20% in this fight. And if that's the case, then I think it's an uphill battle for Urslon to win a decision or compete on the mat here. So yeah, I like Kroot. Moving on. Good fight coming up here. Or it should be a banger anyway. I don't know how good it'll be. We got Jack Jenkins. He's taking on Ramon Tiveres. Current price, Jenkins minus 280. The comeback on Tiveres plus 240. I actually do like the move up and weight for Tiveres a bit. He's an okay fighter. Good power. Okay boxer. Okay grappler. But I don't think he's exceptional anywhere except in the power department. And he's taking on Jack Jenkins. And I feel like I think Jenkins is better in every phase of the sport than him by a fair amount. Much better defensively, much slicker boxer, much better calf kicker. I think he's probably got a grappling edge too, to be honest. It's probably close in that department, but I faded Jenkins in his last fight because I know Jenkins was not great on bottom, but I just don't really picture Tiveres having that much grappling success in this fight. So I think Tiveres is drawing to big moments or KO, which we've seen him we've seen him do it before. So, like, it wouldn't be the craziest thing I've ever seen. But I look at how Davey kind of worked Tiveres over. And, like, obviously, we both love Davey. He's our boy. But, I mean, Davey's a shell of what he used to be.
Yeah.
And I think, I actually think Jenkins is a very similar fighter in a lot of ways. But Jenkins is in his prime. He's a bit higher output. He sits down on his shots a bit more than Davey does at this point. Yeah, I think Tiveres KO is live. Him hurting Jenkins a couple times could happen, but I think Jenkins has a pretty pronounced edge all over the place here. What do you think, Lex?
Completely agree. And not to mention, even in comparison to David Grant, like much more lethal with the leg kicks, too, on the Jenkins side. And I mean,
he
really
throws them with way more intent.
Yeah. I really just do think, I mean, maybe this is just a cop-out, but I think this is just a levels fight, really. I mean, I think Tiveres, solid generalist, but there's nothing to me outside of power, to your point, that, like, brings to the table that I'm, like, wowed about. I think this should be a solid
I wanted to like Tiveres, too. Because I've been, like, kind of, I don't want to say anti-Jenkins, but I felt like the market overrated him. And, pre-tape thoughts, I was like, oh, Tiveres, he could hang here. He's got the power, too. But it's just so hard for me to pick. Like, what does the fight where Tiveres doesn't have a big moment look like that he wins? He gets 3-4 takedowns? I mean, I guess, but I don't really see it in his game.
That's what you would need. Yeah, because he's not super high.
Yeah. So.
You know what's crazy, though, to me, John?
Hit me. You're chopping a bit, Danny.
I was looking at a book.
You're cutting out. We're going to move on. We're going to the main event. We got Carlos Ulberg taking on Dominic, the Devastator Reyes. Current price, Carlos Ulberg, minus 260. The comeback on Reyes is plus 220. Danny, I know you feel fairly strongly here. I feel a little less strong, but what do you think?
Am I good now?
Yeah.
Better now? What I was saying about the last fight, I feel like that's one of the more forgettable co-main events we've had, like, in recent years.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I agree.
Decent fight. Like the Oberg side, I don't know if I'm actually going to get to any kind of a bet here. Obviously, like I talked about the parlay I already have. I like the under 2.5 rounds and like minus 150. It's just because to me that feels correlated to the Oberg side. To me, Oberg more often than not needs to find that early K needs, but like if it gets late in this fight, it's hard for me to not see it be sweaty down the stretch. Reyes can have his moments. Oberg's not the greatest defensive striker. His cardio's a bit shaky. Like Reyes has that high pedigree of 5-round fights. I could totally see it being close down the stretch. But early in this fight, Oberg's speed, the footwork, I think he puts him out.
Yeah, I feel the same way on the other side, where it's like I kind of like the Reyes side. I don't know if I'll get to a bet on it.
That's right.
I mean, I don't even necessarily disagree with a lot of what you said. I do think there's a part of me that's like, Reyes' chin was getting like aggressively priced into his last like couple fights, and now the market's like you don't really hear anybody talking about it. And I feel like people forgot that like the guy got knocked out by a jab in the not too distant past. Took a shitload of damage against Jerry. That's really like what concerns me. Minute to minute, I think it's going to be competitive, though. My initial thought here was like, he's going to struggle to keep up with the volume, but like going into Reyes' tape, he's really never had an issue keeping up with the volume with anybody in his career. He's got pretty good footwork. He cuts the cage off well. I actually think, his kicking game is pretty damn good. He can probably, shut down a bit of Ulberg's movement. The issue for me is I do think, Ulberg's volume is a bit more reliable, even though they're almost the same age. I mean, Ulberg's a lot less shop worn. Obviously, he has, home field advantage here, and we pretend it's not a thing in MMA, but of course it is. Dude's fucking sleeping, he's flying 5 hours, Reyes coming across the world for this fight. I think I'm skeptical of Ulberg's chin, to be honest with you. I am. But I think it's better than Reyes's. So, Ulberg's got some built-in advantages here. The thing for me and Wiley on the Reyes side is it's just like his chin might be dust, but if it's not, despite how well Ulberg manages distance, I mean, John Jones is the best manager of distance in history, and Reyes outlanded him in significant strikes and was able to get to him and land shots. Dustin Jacoby manages distance pretty well, got knocked out by him. Same thing with, not Jan. Jan fucked him up. But that is like Reyes is just most of the guys that Ulberg has fought can't keep up with him athletically. Reyes is probably the first guy he's fought in the USC who is a commensurate or potentially even better athlete than he is. Reyes was a college football player. He was a safety. He is fast. He gets in and out quick. He's got fast hands. He's got power. So I do think that Reyes should be able to keep this fight very competitive minute to minute. The issue is just I do sort of edge the intangible edge to Ulberg a bit here. I do lean that side to win, but I am considering a Reyes bet. I'm monitoring the price and seeing what happens. It's just the frustrating thing is if I like 2 fights ago, I was there 3 fights ago, I was like, I'm never betting Reyes again. I did bet him in his last fight and it worked out, but like I don't want to, forget about just how ugly. Yeah, how ugly those KOs were with the Jiri one. The Span one especially was actually the Jiri one was uglier. The Span one though was disturbing that he was able to get knocked out by a jab in that fight, So yeah, I lean the Reyes side. I don't feel ultra strong about it. I don't feel ultra strong about a lot on this card. There's a lot of pretty good scraps here. I'm excited for the card, but I probably will end up with somewhere between 1 and 4 bets. We'll see where it comes down. I'm still working some things out in my head, but yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm going to pick Ulberg. I do think Reyes is the side though.
You know what sucks though?
Yeah. What's up?
This card starts at 7. It's not an early.
Yeah, that is shitty. I wish the Noche one starting at 3 was like so nice, Like I went out to dinner with like my wife and our friends like at like 7:30 and like we were out having drinks. I just pulled up my phone and we were able to watch the last 2 fights there and the rest of my night was great, Didn't have to worry about it. Instead, we're gonna be up till 2 a.m. watching this shit show.
I'm not even going to be watching the first couple fights because we got the whiteout, Penn State, Oregon. This Saturday.
Yeah, big one.
7:30.
Big one.
Huge game. Yep.
We do next week have a huge pay-per-view card. 2 title fights. We got the Ankalaev Pereira rematch. That I'm less excited for. But then we got Sandhagen and Marab. I think that's a pretty good fight.
Backyard, John.
It is in my backyard. Is it? Where is it? Oh, is it New York?
But, MSG.
Is MSG the next pay-per-view next week? Legs? Is that right? Well, all right. I guess Legs is out. Anyway, guys, drop a like, subscribe. We'll be back next weekend, either Sunday or Monday. We'll figure out a day. Again, thanks for coming out. We'll talk next week. Good luck on your bets this weekend. Peace.